So, tonight I'd like to talk a little bit about Arahant and maybe some stories also about them. Why I decided to choose this topic was because recently we published a booklet called the Anguttara Nikaya Collections. One of the sad little facts about Buddhism in this country is that many of us have a wrong view about Arahants. Arahants are belittled, made very small in many books, and this is a very, very sad thing. They elevate the Buddha very, very high, and then ignore all his disciples. When a Buddha comes into the world to do his work, it is not possible for one person, even the Buddha, to do this work. He has got to have his army of disciples to help him. The Buddha is called the Dharma King, and he needs, like any king, to have an army. So the army of the Buddha is his Arahant disciples. After the Buddha taught 60 of his disciples so that they became Arahants, he asked them to walk in different directions for the good of humanity. And he asked them, not two of them should walk in the same way. Each of them should go in different directions to spread the Dhamma for the good of the world. So the 60 Arahants walked in different directions and spread the Dhamma all over India. And so from then, eventually the Dhamma spread all over the world. And this work was all done by Arahants. But many people even have the wrong idea that Arahants are selfish. If Arahants are selfish, today we would not have the Dhamma still with us. It was all because of Arahants that we have the Dhamma today with us. At the time when there were no books, the Arahants memorized all the suttas, committed them to memory, and then passed them down from generation to generation. And they taught the later monks to recite them. And some were called Majjhima Banakas, Majjhima Nikaya Banakas. They would recite only the Majjhima Nikaya. And some would recite only the Digha Nikaya. And some who are more capable maybe recited 2 out of the 5 Nikayas. But many of them could only recite 1 of the 5 Nikayas. So in this way it was handed down from generation of monks to generation of monks. I've seen some Thai people, they notice that our Chinese in this country, we practice very different from them, so much that like this, about this Arahants, in Thailand, they sing a song about Arahants, a very moving song, where they talk about the Buddha and then his disciples one by one, list out the names. And when you listen to this song, you feel very inspired by these Arahants and how they suffered to propagate the Dhamma. Just now we said about these Arahants going in different directions to propagate the Dhamma. It was not easy work. Some of them, because India already had a religion at that time, and it still continues now, that is Hinduism. So when they went around to spread the Dhamma, they faced all kinds of obstacles. And some of them were even murdered. There was a famous place in India, I think, I forget the name, but anybody who went there to preach Buddhism, they would encounter a lot of obstacles, and some of these Arahants go there and they get murdered in the end. The Buddha said when the Dhamma is coming to an end, it does not disappear all at once like the sinking of a ship. In the Samyutta Nikaya, he said, when the Dhamma disappears, it will go down very slowly. And then he said there are 5 signs when the Dhamma is about to end. People will disrespect, will have no respect for and feel contempt for the Buddha, the Dhamma and the Sangha. That means they will follow other, probably they will have more respect for some other Buddhas rather than our own Buddha. They will have more respect for other Dhamma than the real teaching of the Buddha. And maybe monks, they don't keep to the Vinaya or something, and the people don't respect the Sangha. Then another 2 things the Buddha said. The 4th thing is that people do not respect cultivation. Anybody who cultivates the way, like the Buddha's time, is called a selfish being, a person who wants to get enlightened by himself. This is a very wrong thing, because even a man as great as the Buddha, who had cultivated the holy path for such a long time, finally when he wants to get out of samsara, he has to struggle so hard. And his Arahant disciples with so much paramis, who have also cultivated the way, the holy way for so long time, for kalpas, asan kalpas. And still when they want to get out of samsara, the final stage, they struggle very hard. So who are we that we don't want to struggle to get out of samsara? So easy. Some people teach that you can go about it the easy way. There is no way. The only way is to struggle along the Noble Eightfold Path taught by the Buddha. Unfortunately, many people, they don't want to struggle now, so that anyone who cultivates the way is said to be selfish, trying to get out of samsara himself. Then the 5th sign the Buddha said is concentration. People will look down on samadhi. The Buddha said right concentration in the Noble Eightfold Path, the last factor, is the 4 jhanas. You have to cultivate the 4 jhanas until your mind becomes one-pointed. And then only you can attain. And then some people, they teach different, that you don't have to cultivate this way so hard. And in the Aryavasa Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha said all Aryas, that means people who want to attain the first stage, Sotapan, second fruition, Sakadagami, third Anagami, or fourth Arahant, have to cultivate 10 Dhammas. They are called the Aryavasa Dhammas. And then the 8th one is the breathless stage. You have to cultivate the 4th jhana, because only when you attain the 4th jhana, the breath stops. So, all Aryas of the past, the Buddha said, the present Aryas and all future Aryas have to cultivate this way. But sometimes it happens like during the Buddha's time, some of his disciples, just by listening to him very intently, concentrate their mind, they attain the 4th stage even of Arahanthood. Like this, the Queen Kema, who became the Buddha's number 1 nun, the nun with the foremost in wisdom. She listened to the Buddha and then she became an Arahant. But for this kind of case, that means that in the past they already cultivated the jhanas for many, many lifetimes, so that the mind has already developed to a stage that when they hear the Dhamma, they become enlightened. Now, the Buddha's many disciples, many famous disciples, the most famous one, the Buddha's right-hand disciple was Sariputta, also called Upatissa. Formerly he was a rich Brahmin's son, and he had a very good friend, another rich Brahmin son called Moggallana. Actually his original name was Kolita. Two of them were very good friends. And then when they grew up, they decided to leave the home life and cultivate the holy way. Then they became disciples of Sanjaya. Sanjaya was an externalist sect leader. And they stayed with him for some time, and after some time they learned everything from him very quickly because they were very intelligent, very wise. So they found that Sanjaya couldn't teach them anymore. So they decided to go and find some other better teacher. And then they made agreement between themselves. They said that if any one of them, of the two of them, found an enlightened teacher, he should come back and tell the other person. And both of them will follow this enlightened teacher. So one day Sariputta was walking on the road, probably going on his arms round. He saw the Venerable Assaji, one of the Buddha's 5 first disciples, the 5 bhikkhus. Venerable Assaji was already an Arahant. So when he walked on the road, his demeanor, his deportment was very striking, very majestic. As Chinese say, Wei Yi, in Zhuanglian. Then after he saw Venerable Assaji like this, he thought this man must be enlightened. So he was very impressed. So he came to ask the Venerable Assaji who his master was. And then Venerable Assaji told him the Buddha. And then he asked, what did the Buddha teach? So Venerable Assaji spoke some Dhamma to him, just in a few words, the essence of the Dhamma. And because this Sariputta had cultivated the holy path for such a long time, over kalpas of time, that when he heard so little Dhamma, he attained, it seems, the first stage, Sotapan. Then after that he was very happy. He wanted to go and see the Buddha. So he remembered this fact, he made with Moggallana. So he went to call Moggallana. So both of them went to become the Buddha's disciples. At that time the Buddha had already had several hundred disciples. So when these two came to him, I think at Rajagaha, the Buddha told his other disciples, look at them, the pair coming. He said, these will be my right hand and left hand disciples. So they came to stay with the Buddha, and Moggallana after 7 days became an Arahant, and Sariputta after 14 days became an Arahant. And Sariputta became foremost, number 1 in wisdom, while Moggallana became number 1 in psychic powers. Some people ask this question, how is it Sariputta, who is number 1 in wisdom, he took 14 days to become enlightened, whereas Moggallana only took 7 days. According to the books, it seems that because his wisdom was very deep, it took a longer time to attain. That's why he struggled for 14 days until he became an Arahant. According to the Majjhima Nikaya, the commentaries, it seems that the two of them had passed through 18 Buddhas. They had met 18 Buddhas. Like our Buddha, Gautama Buddha, he met 24 Buddhas who predicted that he will become a Buddha one day. But these two, first and the second disciples, they also cultivated over a very, very long time so that they met 18 Buddhas. The Buddha was once asked about himself, and he said he was the Dhamma king. He sets the Dhamma wheel rolling. And then when he said this, the layman asked him, if you are the king of the Dhamma, who is your general? Then he said, Sariputta is my general. He said, he starts the Dhamma wheel rolling. The Buddha starts the Dhamma wheel rolling, and it is Sariputta who keeps the Dhamma wheel turning. That is why it seems that whenever the Buddha was not around, the Sariputta would be one of the very respected Arahants who would be consulted by the other monks. And even many of the Buddha's suttas that were preached, he also preached them. And many a times the disciples came to ask Sariputta certain things, and then he answered them in a certain way. And then they went to confirm with the Buddha, and the Buddha would always say, that is right, that would be exactly what I would have said. So the Sariputta was the beloved disciple of our Buddha. The Buddha, to use normal terms, we say that the Buddha loved him. And this could be seen from several incidents. One of them was after the Vasa, the 3 months rains retreat, they would the monks would invite other monks to criticize them if they had any weak points, any faults. And then the Sariputta asked the Buddha whether he had any faults, and the Buddha said, no, you have no fault. And the Buddha praised him, said, why is this Sariputta in front of all the disciples, praise him in a more uncertain way, that he was very close to the Buddha. And then the Buddha also once, according to the Dhammapada commentary, wanted to show that there was nobody with wisdom greater than Sariputta besides the Buddha. After coming down from the heaven, speaking Dhamma to his mother, the Buddha came down, and then many of his disciples came to see him. So when so many disciples came to see him, he started to ask them questions one by one. So when he asked the simple questions, many monks could answer. And he asked more difficult questions, then less monks could answer. And then he asked more difficult questions. And then only a first stage Sotapan could answer, or anything above a Sotapan. And then more difficult question he asked, only a Sakadagami and above could answer, second stage. And then a more difficult question, only a third stage and above could answer. Until finally he asked a very difficult question nobody could answer in the end, except Sariputta. Then the Buddha praised Sariputta. The Buddha said, in the whole world, with all its Maras and Brahmas and gods and Devas, etc., and holy men and monks, etc., the Buddha said, nobody was wiser than Sariputta, except for the Buddha. And then, because his wisdom was very great, it follows naturally also that his psychic power also was very great. But Moggallana's psychic power was greater. Once the two of them, Moggallana and Sariputta, they went to the forest to meditate. Sariputta's psychic power was so great that he, unlike many other Arahants, many of the Arahants, when they want to see something like spiritual beings, in the normal state they cannot see. They have to sit down, meditate for a while, and then they attain the jhanas. Then only they can see. But Moggallana, just like the Buddha, even in the normal waking state, at any time, any spiritual being come across, he would be able to see. It comes into his view, he would be able to see spiritual beings that other people could not see. So once Sariputta and Moggallana went to the forest to meditate, and then two yakhas flew by. Yakhas are huge heavenly beings, and yakhas are known to be very fierce. And if they decide to say cause trouble to us, we are just as puny as an ant to them. We cannot do anything compared to all that great power in us. So these two yakhas, they saw Sariputta and Moggallana, and Sariputta was meditating. So one of them said, who is these two fellows? And then the other Yaka told him, oh, that is the Buddha's disciples. Don't mess around with them. They are very great disciples. Then the other Yaka said, I don't believe that. He said, I'm going to give him a blow on the head. Then the other Yaka said, don't do that. He's very powerful. You don't know what you are messing around with. He just ignored the other Yaka. No? So this Yaka came and gave a blow on the head of Sariputta. But Sariputta was in the fourth jhana. So he wasn't killed, otherwise he'll be smashed. So it seems that after he hit Sariputta on the head because he was an Buddha's disciple, Arahant, he died immediately. This Yaka died immediately. And after a while, the Sariputta arose from his meditation. After he arose from his meditation, his head felt a bit groggy. He thought, what's wrong with my head? A bit heavy. So he was telling that to Moggallana. Then Moggallana praised him and said, wonderful. He said, how powerful Sariputta is. He said, just now I saw a Yaka come and give a blow on your head, and now you complain you just got a little headache. Then, after he thought, then he realized. Then he praised Moggallana. He said, great is Moggallana. He said, Yaka gave me a blow on my head, I couldn't see it. And you, in the normal state, you could see. He said, I'm blind like a bat, like that. No? So, both of them praised each other. That is Sariputta. And then Sariputta was also very loyal to the Buddha. And when he was about to pass away, Sariputta knew that he was about to pass away. He purposely went back to his mother's house, because his mother was Brahmin, believed in the Brahmin religion. That means they pray to Brahma, the great Brahma. So when he was about to pass away, he went back to his house, and that night when he was about to pass away, these heavenly beings came to, the heavenly Devarajas came to visit him. First, the 4 heavenly kings came to pay the respect to Sariputta. And after a while, they went away. Then later in the night, Saka Devaraja came to pay homage to Sariputta. And then, after that, he left. And then, still later, great Brahma came, pay respect, homage to Sariputta, and left. Then later, after all that, the mother came to ask Sariputta, how come? He said, I saw some huge lights, coming into your room. He knew that must be Deva, but she couldn't see because so bright is the light. You don't have the spiritual power, you cannot see what being that is. So the mother asked him, what was that? I saw the first part of the night. Then Sariputta told him that it was the 4 heavenly kings. So, come to pay respect to him. So from this, the mother knew that the son was very great. Even the 4 heavenly kings, who are the kings of these Yakas and Gandharvas and Nagas, etc., come to pay respect to my son. So she was full of admiration for Sariputta. Then after that, asked him again, in the middle of the night, who came? And then he said, Sakadevaraja. And the mother was very surprised. Wow, the great Sakadevaraja come to pay respect to my son. She felt even greater confidence in the son. Then she again asked towards the morning, who was that? And he said, that is the one you always pray to, the great Brahma. Then the mother realized, the great Brahma I pray to, come and pay respect to my son. She felt full of admiration and respect for the son. Then the Sariputta told him, don't respect me, something to this effect. I'm nothing. You should respect my teacher. Then here he recited, Iti Piso, Bhagava, Arahant, Samma, Dhammavuddho, the 9 names of the Buddha. All the Buddhas have these 9 names, So when the mother heard that, the mother was very happy and very full of sada, of faith in the Buddha. Then Sariputta realized that the mother already had such strong, unwavering faith in the Buddha. Then only he passed on into Nibbana, Parinibbana. So in that way he converted the mother. Then the Moggallana is well known for his spiritual powers. There's a story in the Visuddhimagga about how the Buddha wanted to convert this Nandopananda. Nandopananda was a Naga, a great snake spirit. And the Buddha saw that he was ripe for conversion. He could be taught to attain the way. So the Buddha purposely got his Arahant disciples walk up to the heavens, They have this spiritual power, they could walk up to the heavens. So at that time, Nandopananda was enjoying himself in the garden with his many wives, and they were drinking, he was drinking and they were entertaining him. So he looked up in the sky and he saw the Buddha and his Arahant disciples walking above him. So this Nandopananda, this snake spirit, his ego was very big, because he's very powerful. So he thought, who are these Dota heads walking above me, So he got very angry. He thought these people don't respect him. So he said, I will show them, I want to teach them a lesson. So he assumed his snake form, huge snake, like a python like that. Then he crawled around the Buddha and all his Arahant disciples. And then used the hood and covered the top. So that all of them were in darkness. They were cut off from the sun. So some of the Arahants are all different levels, The Arahants, the enlightened, their spiritual powers are different. So some of them did not know what was happening. So they asked the Buddha, just now we saw the sun so clearly, how is it? It's so dark now. Then the Buddha told them, we are surrounded by this Nandopananda, this snake spirit. He called around them 7 times, So when they heard that, they knew that this fellow was too much. So the Arahant disciples asked the Buddha for permission to go and teach him a lesson. So the Buddha, the first one asked him, the Buddha said no, didn't want him to go because he was maybe not capable enough of dealing with this Nandopananda. Then one by one the other Arahants asked him, the Buddha rejected all of them, until Moggallana. Then he allowed Moggallana to go and tame this serpent, but he told Moggallana to be careful. So Moggallana assumed the form of another snake and then crawled around him 14 times, and then squeezed him until he cried for help. Then at first he tried to emit fire, and then Moggallana emitted even hotter fire and burned him, and he did not harm Moggallana. Until the end, Moggallana subdued him. So then was Moggallana. And then there are many other stories about Moggallana's psychic power. But in the end, Moggallana died at the hands of murderers, hired killers. It seems that in a previous life, one of the past lives, Moggallana had killed his parents. So because the karma was too heavy, he could not escape. In the end, he had to be killed by these murderers. The psychic powers of the Moggallana, the 6 spiritual powers were similar to what the Buddha had. The Buddha also had these 6 spiritual powers. The psychic power, that means could go to walls, or could fly, or could dive into the ground as though the ground was water, like that, swim underground and come up again. And this psychic power, and then the heavenly eye, he could see what was happening in different realms. Heavenly ear, he could hear what was spoken in hell or heaven, etc. And then he could read others' minds, and then he could see his past lives. And then the last one was the destruction of the asavas, or the mental effluence or mental pollutants, so that the mind does not sort of leak anymore with stray thoughts. So these are the 6 spiritual powers that several of these Arahants have, like another one is Mahakassapa. Mahakassapa was famous for his 13 dutangas, 13 ascetic practices, like begging for food, eating one meal a day, eating from the bowl, wearing rag robes, wearing tree robes, staying in the cemetery or under an open sky or in the forest, and sitting, sleeping. These are some of the ascetic practices. And then there were other famous Arahants like Chula Pantaka, who was foremost, number one, in creating multiple bodies. Many of these Arahants, because their spiritual power is different, some of them, when they wanted to create multiple bodies, they could only create 2 or 3 bodies. And because their spiritual power was not enough, if they walk, the other bodies also walk. If they sit, the others also sit. And they could not make them do different things. But this Chula Pantaka, he was so powerful, he could create 1,000 bodies, different, and they could all do different things. One was brushing his teeth, one was sitting in meditation, one was walking meditation, another talking with somebody, and all do different things. And then another famous Arahant was Daba the Malian. A 7-year-old boy became an Arahant. There were many 7-year-old boys who became Arahants during the Buddha's time, 4 or 5 at least. Daba the Malian was one of them. And at the age of 7, after he became an Arahant, he decided he wanted to do some work to help in the temple. So he asked the Buddha for permission to become the person in charge of the putis, the lodgings. If any monks come, and he will allot the lodgings to them. You go and stay in this place, you go and stay in that place. So sometimes they come at night, At night he is meditating, and then these people come from outstation, different places, And because the monastery, in those olden days, the monastery was what you call forest monasteries, like the Jetavana monastery was about 25 acres. Now in Thailand they still have these forest monasteries. Some of the forest monasteries in Thailand, 1,000 over acres. So because the land is very big, and the kutis, the huts are spread in different places. So at night he got to bring them quite far in the dark, to different places. So this 7-year-old boy, this Arahant, because he was dark, certain nights, no moon, etc. After he got up from his meditation, he point his finger, and his finger will light up like a torchlight like that. Show them the way. He used his finger like a torchlight to show them the way and bring them to the kutis, So when they saw it, they were very impressed. They were very happy to see a small boy with a lighted finger like that. So they passed the word around, So when other monks came to know, sometimes they want to come to stay in the temple. They already arrived during the day. They don't want to come in, They wait until it's dark. When it's dark, then they come and disturb this Daba and ask him to show them. Then he has to show his finger, light it up like that. They want to see this Daba the Malian. And then there were others like Sona Kolivisa, well known for striving. He worked very hard to attain Arahanthood. He came from a very rich family. So he was very delicate. And his feet was so delicate, it seems the soles of his feet even had hair. It's a bit hard to believe, but some of the books say the soles of his feet also had hair. It's very rare, very rare. So he was so delicate, but after he became a monk, he strove very hard. At night he wouldn't sleep. He would walk, because he was afraid that if he rested, he would fall asleep. So he kept walking. During the night he walked up and down, up and down. And because his feet were so delicate, he walked too much. The blood came out from his feet. So much blood that the whole Chankama, the walking place, all like slaughterhouse, and the place where they slaughter the pigs and the goats, all blood. And then still he didn't become an Arahant. So the Buddha saw this man was striving so hard and cannot become an Arahant. He was getting disillusioned, losing heart. So the Buddha came to him, and then the Buddha asked him, Sona, last time when you were a layman, did you like to play the guitar? He said, yes. something like the guitar. So the Buddha asked him, if the guitar string is too tight, what happens? If you string the guitar too tight, the string, the tension too taut, then he said the sound doesn't carry, doesn't go very far. The sound is not very strong. And then the Buddha said, if you relax the string too much, what happens? If the string is too loose, also no sound. The sound is not strong. Then the Buddha said, if your string is this well tightened, how would there be the sound? Then he said the sound will be the best, very nice sound. So the Buddha said, in the same way, you strive too hard, it's no point. You overstrain yourself, and then you get all agitated. Too much energy, no wisdom. So the Buddha asked him to moderate himself. So he relaxed a bit. And then he followed the Buddha's advice and he became an Arahant. And then there were others like Pindola Bharadvaja. Pindola Bharadvaja was number one as a person who makes declarations, statements. And he was also famous in an incident, There was a rich Brahmin. He wanted to see whether there were any Arahants left in the world, holy men, real holy men with psychic power. So he made a bowl, an alms bowl of sandalwood, this nice fragrant wood, the sandalwood is very expensive. So he used that to make a wooden bowl and he hung it up on a long bamboo pole, very, very long, maybe about 60 feet high. Then he made it known that if any Arahant could fly up and take that bowl from the sky 60 feet up, he would reward him more than just the bowl. He would give him other things as well. So for many days, no Arahants came that way. So he was losing heart. He thought there's no more Arahants in the world. So Pindola Bharadvaja passed that way, with Moggallana. Then the both of them heard this talk in the town that they were trying to see whether there were Arahants left in the world. So Pindola asked Moggallana, he said, friend Moggallana, your psychic power is very great. No problem for you to fly up and get that bowl. Then Moggallana said, no, why don't you do it? Asked him. So finally he agreed to do it. So he flew up this Pindola Bharadvaja. But he flew up with the rock also. He was standing on a huge rock, He lifted up the rock by his psychic power as well. Floated up in the sky so that the rock cast a big shadow on the ground. Then everybody saw a big shadow, flying. Then they looked up in the sky, they saw him flying. So he circled the town 3 times and then he took the bowl down. And then everybody clapped. And then from that incident, after that the Buddha came to know, the Buddha made a precept, a rule, that monks are not supposed to exhibit their psychic power just to show off. But it does not mean that they cannot use their psychic power. They can use it, but they cannot show off. That's what the Buddha meant. And then there were other famous disciples like Ratapala, another rich man's son. Also a very moving story, is in the Majjhima Nikaya, or in the book, a set of 3 books from Thailand called A Treasury of the Buddha's Words. The story about Ratapala, how he left home, and the town's richest man's son, he left home, left his wives, and became a monk. And after about 12 years, he came back. His father got angry with monks, for making his son a monk. When he came back, the father didn't recognize him, scolded him. So he had to leave the house empty-handed. Then he passed by the house, he saw a slave, what we call chobokan, throwing away the salt, the sour chok, the moy, chok, the gruel, the porridge, yesterday's porridge, sour already throwing away. Then he had to go and ask the servant to pour that sour porridge into his bowl because there's nothing else to eat. India is a very poor country. So he had to go and eat that sour porridge. But when the servant, the slave, poured into his bowl, the servant observed his hands and feet and looked into his face and then recognized him. finally told the parents, then the father had to go and run and chase after him, And this is a very moving story about Ratapala. Then other Arahants, women also can be Arahants, Women cannot be Buddha, but women can be Arahants. Kema was the number one bhikkhuni, disciple of the Buddha. That means number one in wisdom. And then his left hand bhikkhuni or nun was Upalavana. Upalavana was foremost in psychic power. The two of them were psychic power very great also. And then others like Patachara. I think you all know the story of Patachara in the Dhammapada, that book that our chief has just come out with, a beautiful book, the Dhammapada, many stories inside there. There's this moving story about Patachara and Kisa Gotami. Kisa Gotami also became another woman Arahant. This Kema and Upalavana, sometimes the Buddha normally did not meet much with his woman disciples, those who were, especially those who were not Arahants, because he did not want them probably to get attached to him. So he, sort of chip-chop him. So he, but these Arahant disciples, when they wanted to see the Buddha, normally they come at night, around midnight. And there was a time when the devas, the heavenly beings, will come and see the Buddha for advice. So in the suttas, there's an episode where a deva was talking to the Buddha, asking for advice, asking something. And then this deva saw in the sky, a being flying, and then the being stopped. Because one of these Arahant woman disciples, like Upalavana, at night she wanted to come and see the Buddha, flew, and then she stopped halfway in the sky because she saw the Buddha talking with somebody else. So up in the sky, she prostrated, paid homage to the Buddha, in the sky, and then turned around and flew away. So this deva asked the Buddha, "Who is that?" Then the Buddha said, "That is my great nun disciple, one of these." Then there were other famous, even lay disciples of the Buddha, like Chitta and Hattaka of Alavi, etc., who attained the third stage, Anagami, even having spiritual powers, You see, if a person cultivates the right Dhamma according to the Buddha's real original instructions, it seems at that time many of them, even as lay people, they could attain third stage, Anagami, complete with spiritual powers. And there's an episode in the Dhammapada commentary also about Chitta, how he met a friend whom he had not seen for 30 years. And for 30 years, this friend of his was an externalist ascetic, a naked ascetic from externalist sect. And this man cultivated austerities, ascetic practices for 30 years. But because he was wiped out, externalist sect, he had no attainment for 30 years. So when he came to talk with Chitta, he came to realize that Chitta, even as a layman, had already attained Anagami with all the spiritual powers, whereas this other person, he followed the right path, attained nothing. Just now I was checking the script of our latest, the next coming Voice of Buddhism. There's a very interesting article there about temptation and the humanness of Sakyamuni and Jesus. Because there is a film, they made a film, The Last Temptation of Jesus or something like that, where they portray Jesus as a very human person, as a human. But a lot of these Christians, they could not accept that, so they protested against this film. And the person who wrote this article, Roy C. Amor, I think, he's a Christian minister, but he seems to know a lot about Buddhism. And he quoted, yes, our chief says he's the author also of the Two Masters, One Message, that book, which is on the 17th and 18th of next month he will be here. So, this one from our Buddhist point of view, Sakyamuni Buddha is a human like any one of us, It's just that he has developed on the spiritual evolution, the spiritual ladder up to the pinnacle, to the top. And we are also all walking this spiritual path. In a way, we are all bodhisattvas or bodhisattvas. The Buddha is not actually human like us. That he came down just to act for us, make a show for us, and to lead us. But actually, he is just one of many Buddhas. He is not the only one. For countless ages in the past, there have been Buddhas, just like him, And we are all walking this way. One day we will attain Bodhi, either of three ways. Either become a Buddha, which is very rare, or become an Arahant, that means one who helps the Buddha propagate the Dhamma, or become a Pacheka Buddha. Pacheka Buddha is one like Devadatta, in the end will become a Pacheka Buddha, you see. So, and this book says that he quoted the Kathavatu. Kathavatu was a book written during Emperor Asoka's time. At that time, Buddhism split into 18 sects. So there were many wrong views. So one Arahant, Mogali Putta Tisatera, he wrote this book refuting the wrong views. Trying to point out which is right, which is wrong, because there are so many views, different views. So this book, Kathavatu, is a very interesting book. And this man, Roy Amo, he quoted from there, he said that one of the ridiculous things they say about our Buddha is that even his excrement is fragrant. So he put him on a pinnacle so much that they argue about this thing. He cannot be, his excrement cannot be like us. But in this book they point out that after all the Buddha eats food like us, isn't it? He eats food just like we eat, the same type of food. So what comes out, what goes in is the same, what comes out must be the same. One of the reasons why people look down on Arahants is because they put the Buddha so high that they cannot compare the Buddhas with the Arahants with the Buddha, Like, for example, even there are some wrong belief about our Buddha that he was born from a virgin mother. This is just like Jesus, a wrong belief, just like they believe in Jesus. Also, like some people believe that our Buddha is eternal. And some people even talk about the Adi Buddha, the first Buddha. This concept about the first Buddha is just like God, There must be a first creator, God. So we are going backwards. The Buddha came into this world to teach us the right Dhamma, to go above this concept of God and all this. Now some people are going backwards. And the Buddha was very human like us. Many times he was sick, He would also berak like us. Sometimes, it's in the suttas also, And then sometimes he got a lot of angin. Then his disciples got to come and massage him and take care of him and all that. And then the Buddha's attainment of enlightenment, he had to struggle hard. The Buddha's attainment of enlightenment, he had to struggle hard. If you look into the suttas, you find that nobody struggled as hard as the Buddha. And after practicing all kinds of austerities, some of them very crazy externalist practices also he practiced, because nobody taught him. There was no Buddha in the world at that time. He had to find the truth himself. We are very lucky because the Buddha has already opened the way for us. The Dhamma is with us. So we don't have to go blind like the Buddha, The Buddha had nothing to depend on, so he had to follow all these externalist practice, all crazy practices like going around naked and eating all kinds of things, even eating excrement, The Buddha also practiced this, cow's excrement, cow shit, dry he take, wet also he take, even his own excrement also he take, and all these things, all these practices until finally he got enlightened. Then he passes to walk the middle way. And also, even after the Buddha was enlightened, it seems for 49 days, he had to contemplate, contemplate on the 12-fold dependent origination to understand it completely, and then he practiced entering cessation repeatedly, enter nirvana, go out, enter and go out, and then withdraw, all these, until he was really prepared. And some people, we make such a big difference between the Buddha and the Arahant path, whereas actually it does not seem that it is all that different in the sense that you cannot determine what path you want to walk. It's just like you go and study in a university. You can think you want to be number one, be like Lee Kuan Yew, double A at Cambridge. Everybody likes to be like that, Cambridge double A. But how many can become a Lee Kuan Yew? Very few people have that capacity, that ability to be like that. So we can think that we want to become a Buddha, but in the end, it depends on how we are made, what we are like. And also, when the Buddha was walking the way, the holy path, many times he didn't know actually that he was going to become a Buddha, When he met a Buddha, then the Buddha will tell him, you are destined to become a Buddha. Otherwise, many times he didn't know. It seems that even during the last Buddha he met, Kassapa Buddha, it seems that he scolded that Buddha also. He didn't know that he was walking that way until Kassapa Buddha told him, you are also going to become a Buddha one day. And then even after he was enlightened, our Buddha, he looked around and he saw that the truth that he had awakened to was so deep that worldly people would not be able to understand it. So he didn't feel like teaching also. He felt like going back into the forest, keep to himself. And there's a nice verse, in the Vinaya books about what he said about living beings are immersed in desire, who not want to listen to the holy path, because the holy path goes against our grain, goes against all our desires, all our habits. So until Brahma had to come and plead with him 3 times, then only he came to teach the Dhamma. And Arahants are all at different levels, and the Buddha was the most perfect of them. That is why when we recite the homage to the Buddha, we say Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. So the Buddha is also known as an Arahant, but he is a perfectly enlightened Arahant. There are also other Arahants. They attain the final fruit is like him, enlightened. Like we go to school, we pass our exam, say the whole class passes, right? But not everybody is number one. Number one is only one person, right? The top student. But everybody passed. So in the same way, the Buddha was once asked, what is the difference between you and your Arahant disciples? The Buddha said, I am the first one. I find back this holy path that existed before, It's like an estate road. Long time you don't use the estate road, it's covered up with lalang, so people don't see it, don't recognize it anymore. Then he finds back this road, This road has been walked by all the Buddhas in the past and walked by all the Arahants in the past. So he shows them back this road, so they all follow. So what he's saying is that he opens this road and they all follow the same road. So if they all follow the same road, they must go to the same place, isn't it? Unfortunately, there are some books which put down our Arahants very badly, Some of these so-called sutras compare our Buddha, it seems that they say that according to some of these so-called sutras, our Sariputta cannot even challenge his spiritual power. Is not even equivalent to a Devi, heavenly woman, In one of these, I can see the name, it's called the Malakati Sutra. They say that in this book they say that the Sariputta, when he saw a woman, he got very unhappy because he still got this discriminating heart. And so the Devi wanted to prove that he was not so great. So the Devi changed him into a Devi, into a woman's form, And then the Devi changed into a man's form, into Sariputta himself. And then when Sariputta realized that his form changed to a woman, he tried to change back. He couldn't change. And then the Devi made the heavenly flowers fall down. So it seems when it fell on all the bodhisattvas, they just shook and all the flowers fell off. But when it fell on Sariputta, he shook and it stuck to his robe, he won't fall off. In other words, Sariputta cannot even compare with the Devi. But in the real Dhamma, you should understand that when the Sariputta was about to pass away, the 4 heavenly kings came to pay respect to him. Saka Devaraja came to pay respect to him. The great Brahma came to pay respect with him. And the Devi is nowhere compared to all these. Devi is probably like the servant there in the heavens. So we should understand when we read some of these things, we don't believe all of it, because if a person is very holy and you look down on a holy person, or you say bad things about a very holy person like an Arahant, the consequences are very grave. Devadatta had a few of friends, one of them was Kokalika. Kokalika, after Devadatta died, Kokalika had a grudge against Sariputta and Moggallana. So he said very bad things about Sariputta and Moggallana to all the other monks, and even came to complain to the Buddha about Sariputta and Moggallana. And then the Buddha said, don't say just things about Sariputta and Moggallana. But he refused to listen to the Buddha, and he continued to say bad things about Sariputta and Moggallana. After that, what happened was his body, a chicken pox came out. And then from small sores, it broke up into bigger sores, until it became like marbles. And then it broke open and all the pus and all that blood came out. And then he died a miserable death. And after he died, the Buddha's disciples came to ask the Buddha, where has he gone? The Buddha said that, foolish fellow, I told him not to say bad things about Sariputta and Moggallana. Now he's gone to hell. So they asked the Buddha, which hell? The Buddha said, a certain hell, I forgot the name. And then they asked the Buddha how long he will be there. The Buddha said, the time that he will be there, the Buddha described the suffering, what kind of suffering, how much suffering he has to undergo there. And the Buddha said, the time he will be there is unimaginable. But the Buddha said, to give a simile, you imagine one bullock cart has got this sesame seed, chima, this sesame seed is very small, moachi. So one bullock cart has got very many of these, very much of these sesame seeds. So imagine 100 years passes, you take away one sesame seed. And then after another 100 years, you take away another sesame seed. So each 100 year pass, you only take away one sesame seed. How long before that bullock cart will be empty? It will be a very long time, isn't it? But the Buddha said it's not a matter of one bullock cart. The Buddha said it's a matter of something like 5,209 million bullock carts. 5,000 over million bullock carts. You have to exhaust all the sesame seeds, but you're only allowed to take one sesame seed out every 100 years. So that is how long that person will stay in hell for reviling an Arahant. So we don't think lightly about Arahants. Arahants are very holy people, and it takes a very, very long time to become an Arahant. Not easy. So I think I shall end here. and pass the mic to our chief. Now that he related, you can find in Dhammavuddho a well-known story. So in his talk, just now he mentioned about Arahantas, the Buddhas, Sattras and Brahmas and miracles and jhana, so many things. And he also mentioned that there are some misinterpretations or misunderstanding about Arahantas. It is true. So what happened when the spiritual development started to decay? So about 700 to 800 years after the Buddha. Then Arahantaship also slowly started dwindling or disappearing. So many of those disciples, to justify that their way of religious life, when they could not prove others that they are not Arahantas, what they did, they tried to look down upon Arahantaship and tried to bring up the Bodhisattva cult. That is how this concept and belief of Bodhisattvas appear in Buddhism. Earlier, devotees never worship or pray to any Bodhisattvas. When they came to know this concept or belief is very important to ordinary people, they introduced this, and now this has become a very, very popular belief among the Buddhist community. And that is the very reason why they try to introduce Arahantas as selfish people who try to find out their own salvation without saving others. This statement is entirely wrong, goes against the teachings of the Buddha. They have forgotten what the Buddha has said earlier. The Buddha says, one person cannot save another person. Others can show the way, the path, the method, what to do, how to save themselves. By ignoring these sayings of the Buddha, neglecting what he has said, today they are preaching that Bodhisattvas can save you, the Buddhas can save you, but they say Arahantas cannot save you because they work for their own salvation. This is misinterpretation of the Buddha's teaching. Again, when they say that Arahantas are selfish, that is entirely wrong, because attainment of Arahanthood can be gained by fulfilling all the duties and obligations and responsibilities by serving others, not by praying to any Buddhas or Bodhisattvas. No one can attain Arahanthood. They must practice, observe all the perfections and paramitas. When they observe paramitas, they serve others. How do they serve? Take for instance, they develop their compassion and kindness life after life. By cultivating these great qualities, do you think that they do not serve others? They practice their patience and tolerance and understanding. By practicing these great qualities, do you think that they do not serve others? They practice generosity. They sacrifice everything for the benefit of others to gain this Arahanthood. Do you think they do not serve others?
then how can they say Arahantas are selfish? Remember this. This saying is entirely wrong. Then he also mentioned the nature of Arahantas. There are two groups amongst the Arahantas, Sukha Vipassaka and Samatha Yanika. It depends on what method, what kind of meditation they have practiced to gain Arahanta. Sukha Vipassaka means Vipassana meditation. They practice by developing their understanding, concentrating on Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, three characteristics of the universal nature of existence and life and everything. Then they gain purity, perfection, attain Arahanta. Then the other group practice Samatha meditation by calming and developing their mind, then gain jhana or attain jhana stages. Later, or in the end, they must, there's no doubt, must shift over to Vipassana. Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta must be concentrated and understand. Through their jhana meditation they develop, cultivate, but in the end shift over to Vipassana, then attain Arahanta. Then the difference is, those who practice jhana meditation or samatha can perform miracles or psychic power, but not the other group. Through Vipassana, complete purity, perfections you can find in them as holy people. Samatha, they too attain perfections and purity plus psychic power. But in their nibbanic bliss, there is no difference whatsoever. Now, just now he mentioned about Sariputta and Moggallana, two chief disciples of the Buddha. The Buddha says, in Satya Vibhanga Sutta, you can see this in Paritha chanting book, Sariputto bhikkhave sotapatti phale vineti, Moggallano uttamatte vineti. How he introduced these two chief disciples. The Buddha says, Sariputta can train all his followers and disciples to gain Sotapatti, or the first stage of sainthood, can pave the way for the disciples to attain the first stage of sainthood, Sotapatti. Moggallano uttamatte vineti. But Moggallana can train his disciples to attain the higher stage up to the maximum level, higher stage. Because of that jhanic power and psychic power, very easily he can convince others. Then, just now he mentioned the nature of Arahantas. He said, Sariputta is very famous for wisdom amongst all the other disciples. It is true. Even then, he is not free from human emotion. There are few incidents. This is the difference between an Arahant and a Buddha. Kilesa vasana, sansaric habits, the habits that we maintain life after life, they are neither good nor bad. mere habits. After attaining higher stage of the Buddhahood, the Buddha is the only person who will be free from those sansaric habits. He never maintained any of his previous habits. But Arahantas, even after attaining their sainthood or Arahanthood, still maintain certain previous experience. They are not bad habits. This is called kilesa vasana. One day, when Sariputta was very, very happy, he said, he was talking to the Buddha, I think, although you have mentioned there were many Buddhas appear in this world, and there will be many more appear in time to come, but I believe that you are the best among all those Buddhas. Who said this? Sariputta, who got highest wisdom. Then the Buddha asked this question. You said, I am the best among all those Buddhas. Do you know anything about those Buddhas who appeared in this world earlier? He said, no, I don't know. Do you know anything about those Buddhas who will appear in time to come? I do not know. Then how can you say I am the best? Here you can see the difference between Buddha and Arahant. Another occasion, a group of monks headed by Sariputta visited a place. They had to spend one night, and the devotees have prepared the bed for them to sleep. All the other young monks came and occupied the beds. Sariputta came very late. When he came, he found out there was no bed for him to sleep. He was disappointed, because he is the leader. He went out and spent the whole night under a tree. Next day morning, when the Buddha came out, he saw Sariputta was sitting under a tree. Then he asked, where did you spend last night? Under this tree? Why? You did not sleep. Because I have no place to sleep. All the other monks have occupied the bed. So, anyway, I have decided, I have made up my mind not to lead this Sangha community anymore. I got fed up with it. Then the Buddha says, Sariputta, you should not think like that. You are the head of the Sangha community. You must have this understanding in you. Then Sariputta realized that he is wrong. These kind of weaknesses still you can find among Arahants. Then he mentioned about Sakra and Brahma. What the Buddha has said, how he introduced these powerful figures. Naturally, people like to pay more attention and respect to those who have more powers, but not those who are virtuous and what we call cultured. Sometimes they don't care. But those who have more money, those who have more power, and those who are very famous, people pay more attention. That is why people like to pray and worship to Sakra and Brahma thinking that they are more powerful, they can gain many more things. That's why they go and worship to four-faced Buddha. It is not Buddha, Brahma. Because Brahma got four faces. They think by worshipping they get more blessings through this figure. But they cannot understand what the Buddha said about Sakra and Brahma and what sort of power they have and what sort of ignorance they have in their mind. They are not holy, they are not perfect, they are not enlightened, but they have some sort of worldly powers. And we are so crazy, so greedy, so selfish, by worshipping them, we think we get more and more prosperity and spend more and more money to buy more joysticks. This is our Buddhism. That means we are worldly minded. We pay more attention toward any religious activities where people think that they can gain something, worldly thing. But very seldom they are ready to give due respect, the perfection, wisdom, understanding, because their understanding is very poor. That is why they pay more attention to the worldly power. Sakko vikkhave devanamindo avita rago, avita doso, avita moho, biru chambi trasi pala. This is the sayings of the Buddha in Bhajagga Sutra. What he says? Sakra, the king of God, is not free from craving, is not free from anger, is not free from ignorance, not free from fear, tension, worries, disturbances, but he got worldly power. Tathagato bhikkhave arahang samma sambuddho vitarago vitadoso vitamoho abhiru achambi anutrasi apalaga. Tathagata samma sambuddha is free from craving, free from anger, free from ignorance, and no fear, no selfishness, no worries, no disturbances in his mind. That is why we take refuge in the Buddha. Still we cannot understand the real meaning of taking refuge in the Buddha. When we say Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, we never concentrate, we never think. Some others may come and condemn, saying the Buddha is a man, he is not a god, he is dead and gone. How can he save you? How can he bless you? Why do you want to take refuge in him? But you do not know what to say. You do not know what you are saying. Those who say that they believe in God when they have fear, when they have some sort of insecurity feeling, worries, they recall the God into their mind. They also say, God is not a person, but they know how to create that concept, create the image of God in their mind. Then they pray, worship, develop their belief and faith and confidence and strengthen their mind. They can get rid of many of those problems. But Buddhists are stupid. They do not know how to recall the Buddha in the same manner into their mind when they have fear and tensions and insecurity and worry. When they can create the image of the Buddha in the same manner those who believe in God do, then you also can get rid of your worries, because You strengthen your mind through your faith and belief and confidence and inspiration. That is the meaning of Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Whenever you have fear, same thing. Oh, 9:30. Sakasattha Jabummattha Devanaga Mahiddhika Punyantang Anumodittva Jirang Rakhantu Lokasasanam Ittavata Chammehi Sambatang Punya Sampadang Sabbi Devanumodantu Sabba Sampatti Siddhya Devo Asatu Kalena Sassa Sampatti Hetu Ca Pito Bhavatu Loko Ca Raja Bhavatu Dhammiko Idango Nyati Nangotu Sukita Hantu Nyatayo Imina Punya Kammena Mami Bala Samagamo Satang Samagamo Hotu Yava Nibbana Pattiya